Consider supporting Archaeosoup on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Link available in video description. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to another Digging the Game. In this series we play computer games as archaeologists, and today I'm returning to Zelda Breath of the Wild for part 7 of our series examining the archaeology of this game. Today, specifically, I want to examine the archaeology of the Zonai people, the mysterious Zonai people, typified by the Zonai ruins in the Faron region of Hyrule, of the world map. So here we are, broadly speaking, well, it's the Faron Tower I've just jumped off, in fact, in the Faron region. And specifically, I'm going to start here on this Kama plateau, because it is just sort of on one of the offshoots of that plateau, where I think we get a bit of an insight into the mysterious nature of the Zonai people. These statues here, slightly bird-like, I think, in some respects. You have the beaks, almost with glasses, sort of emphasized eyes there, a collar-like garment, or maybe a hint of folded wings, certainly on the right-hand statue there, and talons clutching the perches on which they're sitting. These Zonai people maybe were bird-like, or possibly venerated flying creatures. In fact, when we look at the back, it looks as though they're wearing hoods, perhaps, robes, with their wings protruding from underneath those robes. Now, that's not unheard of in the broader realms of Legend of Zelda computer games. In the Wind Waker, for example, you have bird people there who are not dissimilar to what we see here. But also, I would humbly submit at this juncture that the look of those faces on the statues are very reminiscent of a particular item that you can get in Zelda Twilight Princess. In that game, there is the Hawkeye goggles. Is it? Actually, I've had some notes written here just in case. Hawkeye binocular mask. That's it. The Hawkeye mask, which paired with a bow and arrow in the game, allows you to have a zoomed in perspective, almost like a sniper bow. And that, seemingly, it looks as though that was made by humans in that game, not by particular people. I don't know if this is a callback to that, or if that mask is a callback to these, or if there's some sort of connection that's been in the back of the minds of the designers of Breath of the Wild and broader Zelda titles. But I think these statues are a little hint at something of these mysterious people. I also like the idea that they're actually grinning at you. There could be sort of moustaches or something like that, or maybe the face protruding towards a beak, maybe on these statues. But it also looks like a big toothy grin. Actually, if we just zoom in there, you can see these big teeth. I quite like it. So the Zonai, they are mysterious, and as we were looking at in the previous episode with the ancient Hylians, it looks as though Zonai ruins and this sort of quasi-Mayan sort of sensibility, in fact, which we've looked at in part 4 of this series on Breath of the Wild, is not only is a signature, but also it seems that the two cultures were drawn to one another. And it looks as though the Zonai people built around the initial ancient Hylian structures, such as the Spring of Power and this kind of thing, and then eventually you had ancient Hylians again turning up and building occasionally temples and the like in places that sprung out of of that initial exploration. So there's some sort of intertwined relationship. It looks as though in different places either the Zonai or the ancient Hylians got there first, as it were. Just going to have to deal with this guy here. There we go. Now, today I'm wearing my lovely glow-in-the-dark skeleton costume. Hopefully you'll get a chance to see the skeleton glowing. But also, on this plateau, we also see another feature of the Zonai architecture, and that's these squares, or these, again, sort of rectilinear. I'm pulling on that word once more. These square constructions that are usually based around four small pillars joined with four small walls joining those pillars, and in the middle there's often nothing actually. Occasionally you'll find a treasure chest or some fruit that's come to rest in the middle of these structures, but they're all over the place. Now in this instance we have two, well actually more than two. We have one, two, well, three. So there's one almost buried here. 3, 4, and inside this, if I use the no, sorry, my mistake. If I use the stasis rune, I can knock it off, let it build up some power, and it goes flying away. Ah! Okay, try again. Let it recharge. Oh. There we go. And hit it. There we go. There, well, that's enough. Oh, okay, big hearty radish in the middle of this one. So this is number 4. Any more? 4. Is this one over here? No, this is a series of pillar blocks, and again another short sort of curtain wall that abruptly breaks off here. I can't really think of an adequate explanation for the relationship between these squares, shall we call them, Zonai squares, and these statues. However, these Zonai squares do appear around the pillars in the Guccini Plain barrows. We also looked at that in part 4, where I tentatively made the connection between the the Faron forest and whoever was building there, and the Guccini Plains. In fact, we can see them just over there in the distance. There's one there. And at the bottom of these pillars, we have, as part of the barrow, these squares as well. So perhaps actually what we're seeing here is initial stages of that burial, right? Maybe these are our initial burials, potentially, given that this is the only other place that we've really seen this square structure. Maybe these are people who are lower down in the social order, or maybe even higher up in the social order, given that they are buried in close proximity to these two statues over here. Again, it's one of those things where they are mysterious, and they are also, as well, we have to acknowledge, they are designed to be mysterious. The Zonai, as we saw in Creating a Champion, in the book where the map, the geography is laid out, history written in the geography of the game, they're specifically described as mysterious. We have another plateau area here, again with a curtain wall, with periodic square pillars and more square structures, although I'm not inclined to land here because we have a Wizrobe over there with his lightning rod. He'll mess my day up for sure. But one thing that I would like to take a look at just before we move on is actually the different sizes of pillars as well that we have here, and also the fact that these pillars don't seem to be related to larger structures. In the context of the ancient Hylian ruins that we were looking at last time, something this big is almost always part of a corridor of pillars, or part of a structure that actually has walls leading you somewhere. Whereas these large chunks, they seem to be almost punctuating the natural landscape as opposed to making a statement within it, if that makes sense. In this instance, for example, here, these two huge, almost buttresses that seem to have these really rather large revetments, almost giant steps, I guess, leading up onto what is another little plain or platform in the Faron woodlands rainforest area. I suspect that we're probably looking at people who lived within the landscape, and by that I mean to say, of course, we all live within the landscape, but people who saw this valley as a series of natural structures that they augmented. And the closest analogy I can come to in just the first analogy that I think of rather is actually the world of J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and elves who were demarked in their relationship to the world as being different from mankind because they built essentially within trees, within forests. They didn't try to limit what nature wanted to do. Instead, they worked in harmony with it. And also as well, there's an echo within those pillars of the eventual fate of these trees. I mean, look at the size of this tree. It has no flowering oh, just got hit by a goat. Has no flowering branches anymore. It's clearly at the end, or the last third of its life, as it were, with a couple of smaller branches protruding from the sides, I guess. But at the top, certainly, it's seen better days. And in that sense, it looks a little bit like one of those giant stone pillars. Maybe what they're doing is they are echoing the life cycle of the tree and the ultimate destiny of the tree to become a sort of a pillar of the forest. It's hard to say. But what we can say, though, is that they don't seem to mind, or didn't seem to be that concerned about the ultimate destiny of these monuments. This one here has fallen over, and is seemingly actually has been pushed over, arguably, by this tree. Maybe we have a cycle being enacted where the people who, because the Faron region in all the Zelda games, Faron is always connected with the woods. So maybe the Zonai people living in these woods had a sense that whatever they built would eventually be knocked over by the landscape, and that the landscape was, in that sense, part of what they were building. It's an interesting idea, at least, but it also doesn't sit particularly well necessarily with some of these Mayan and Aztec, Mesoamerican style architecture, in so much as it's quite clear that even though, for example, Mayan cities as they are found today are found within forests like this, often overgrown, it's clear that they managed the forest very carefully. They wouldn't let it encroach on the city as was. So we might actually be seeing a civilization that actually used to manage this whole area, and that these trees have simply moved in and messed up the place. There's two potentials, I guess, there. One of them is more in harmony with the Faron name, with the Faron region. The other one is a little less cooperative. We can see here as well that actually people today in this area use, for example, trees and swamp roots when they grow rather large to create quasi-natural bridges across rivers and lakes. So here they've actually used vines to create a bridge that goes across. So maybe that's a vestige of that attitude of living in harmony with nature in the Faron region. Again, it's kind of hard to say. However, there is an area that I'd now like to go and take a look at, and that is over here. All the way over here, in fact, in the north of the map. Oh, far in the north of the map. And we're going to start just here where I've actually laid the travel medallion down. This is going to be interesting. So, here we are at the travel medallion that I strategically placed in the landscape, because actually at this point in the map there's not much else around to fast travel to, short of actually going straight to the heart of this place here, and I didn't want to do that. we are actually in a very particular place that's also in the shadow of that structure over there, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. That is actually a labyrinth just over there, but we'll come back to that in a second. This is the beginning of the approach to a very special place, and it's marked out by these structures here, structures that you see really sparingly in this world. In fact, these structures, as shown here, standing freestanding as opposed to part of, for example, labyrinths, are actually really only seen in the Faron region. These are snake-like, lizard-like constructions, which, if you recall, in part 4, led me to think that maybe the Zonai, as then unnamed, that the Zonai maybe worshipped lizards, because the Zelphos, electric arrow-shooting lizards, had taken up residence in the approach to Dracuzo Lake. And here we have a very explicit series of statues leading us up this approach here, this pathway. They slowly change in form until, so here we see pillars akin to those that we've just seen in the Faron region. Slightly shorter, but nonetheless very similar. And then here we see two sentinels, just like the ones that we saw in the Faron region just now. One doing better than the other. One's missing his head, or its head, but we can see again those masks, slightly worse wear in terms of weathering, but then again they are quite exposed here on the hillside. But the masks, the wings. Oh, actually, there you go. So there's the mask. Oh, so they're looking outwards. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Maybe they're guarding the your approach, whoever's approaching up this hill. But unless the two sentinels are here, so this guy is looking outwards with his back to the pathway. Oh, go away! I'm trying to do archaeology. Right, I'm going to deal with these guys so they don't come back. There we go. Looking away from the pathway as you walk up it. So actually that's the hooded back of that one. Presumably this guy here has been weathered or had his head knocked off at some point, but would have been facing outwards as well. You can see his talons there on the floor. And it's all leading up to this area here, where there's this eternal dome of darkness. I like saying that, eternal dome of darkness, surrounded by this oopy gloopy swamp. If you sit in that, you're going to definitely die within seconds. But again, we see another sentinel just over there. Oh, and I've got too close. I've passed into the darkness, in fact. Now this is very important, because I think this tells us possibly something else about the Zonai people. Darkness. As you pass from light to dark, you pass through a crepuscular environment. And what's another word for crepuscular? Twilight. I think that's what's going on here. I think this may well be a hint that these Zonai people, and this is a more explicit actually reference in the shape of this statue here. You can see its wings that are thrust out behind it, its beak, and its head is lit up such that you can see through the eyes of the mask or the crown-like structure that it's wearing. I think this may well be a reference to the fact, or to the idea that these Zonai people are connected to the Twili or the Twilight people of Twilight Princess. Now, there's not a lot that really, in that sense, backs this idea up. So I make space to pick up that torch. But the style of these masks, and the style actually of, for example, this statue here, for me is actually quite reminiscent of Midna, a character that is Link's accompaniment through the Twilight Princess game, and a key figure in that game, almost like a Twilight Twili equivalent of Princess Zelda herself. Sorry, that's kind of hard to say. And so the fact that you pass into darkness may well be a fairly on-the-nose reference to Twilight. As we enter this space, look at this. These huge, carved, elegant pillars culminate in these monstrous mouths on each side of the pathway. And as we go, we are invited to light our path, but we're never given any other light. We have to feel our way through the ruins. To be honest, there's not much to see here. I mean, there is lots to see, but it's kind of hard to show you in video form. But we see, again, more references to these bird-like folk, these masks. And maybe they're simply wearing bird-like masks. In fact, this is not dissimilar as well to the bad guy, the main antagonist in Zelda Twilight Princess, and that is Zant himself, well, an evil member of the Tweely Twilight people who wants to invade Hyrule, the realm of light. Incidentally, as well, I'm really enjoying now that my costume is glowing with the skeleton. It's like a Mexican wrestler, but a skeleton version. All around this island, we have the remnants of more Zonai ruins. Here are two more monsters' heads. We have natural and carved stonework. We also have a whole range of creatures that seem to be quite happy living here. Maybe they are they're simply adapting to the twilight or to the darkness in a way that we cannot. Now, within the game, you have to explore this area and eventually find your way to one of the many shrines that dot the map. And in fact, I think I'm approaching one of the shrines now. So in the middle over here, there is let's light these two. There we go. In the middle over here, there is a Hinox, which I don't necessarily want to wake up. There he is. Bless his cotton socks. Ah. Oh no, I woke him up. So now, having explored this area a little bit and hinted at, really that's all I suppose I wanted to point out was this darkness, this eternal darkness element, I think is a key to maybe understanding the Zonai. But now I want to move on to the labyrinth, the North Lomai Labyrinth. And in fact, there are a few labyrinths. There's one at the north of the map, there's one down here at the southwest of the map, South Lomai Labyrinth, and there's also one up on the northeast of the map, which is a little island unto itself, the Lomai Labyrinth Island, in fact. That was not planned. I did not know it was called Lomai Labyrinth Island until just then. So let's beam over to the labyrinth that we were just looking at the bottom of the approach to the Typhlo ruins. That's what these dark ruins are called, the Typhlo ruins. And again, try to understand what's going on, because we've got this weird sort of juxtaposition in the Faron woodlands of architecture that sits quite well with the landscape and with the Faron area. Oh, I'm a bit cold. Better put on some warm clothes. Oh, I don't want to get out of my glow in the dark, but I don't want to freeze to death either. So let's see, what can we wear that's fun? I know I'll put on a Lionel mask. Is that any warmer? No? Okay. I'll put on a warm doublet. Oh, still cold. Blimey, okay. Warm trousers as well. That's better. So, I love that pose as well. That's quite cool. But yeah, so in strong contrast to Faron, what we have here is architecture that is unyielding. This is all about squares and blocks and unnatural developments, such as what looks like electrified light. It may be some form of magic in this world, you know, in the Legend of Zelda, the universe. Who knows? But this looks almost like a sort of modernist dream. I can imagine someone commissioning this sort of architecture in our world, in like a business setting perhaps. And this makes me wonder again about the nature of the Zonai people, because, well, first of all, I just wanted to let's see if we can just get to the entrance of this labyrinth. That's over here. Because actually, at the entrance of these labyrinths, you do get a hint, a fairly strong hint, that these are the same people. Because you may not be convinced of that just at the moment, in so much as this does look quite drastically different. In fact, look, none of that sort of Mesoamerican repetition either. The patterns on the walls. This is a subtly different architecture, but it is nonetheless punctuated by these monsters' heads. You see, these giant snakes, or dragons, or whatever they are. There's one at the base, one in the middle, and not quite one at the top, but they're using the same red stone on each level, at the top of each level. So this is the Zonai people again, but is this a different form of Zonai people? Are these people who separated from their Pharaon cousins and decided to build or experiment in these relatively barren environments with very stark architecture? It's hard to say. The music in these labyrinths is always has this sort of slightly mysterious tone to it, and so I find myself, in fact, just in case you can't hear the music, let me just turn it up for you. Yeah, that's probably a bit louder, but it's just a series of wistful tones with a sort of a quizzical melody underlying it, and I find myself quite naturally wondering, what are these things for? Now, in the game, each one contains a shrine, which is linked to the Sheikah people, and each one also is related to a type of clothing, in fact. And actually, we can put them on now, and they're called the barbarian clothes. So one labyrinth will have a treasure chest for the barbarian helmet, another for the barbarian armor, and another one for the barbarian trousers. Even though, or leg wraps rather, sorry. Even though you can't wear them here because it's too cold to wear them. I wonder what that means. Is this an indication that perhaps this is what the Zonai did? They left Pharaon and deposited their barbarian selves within these labyrinths? Did they reject a more naturalistic way of life in harmony with the forest? And as I say, begin to experiment with a more, well, brutalist, in fact. Brutalist as a form of architecture, that is. That's not to say a quality of life, but a more brutalist or modernist form. Maybe some architect or someone like that, got tired of having to put up with trees knocking down their monuments and their pillars, and they decided to build this instead. Now, this is just one of those labyrinths. In fact, we can very quickly travel to the one in the desert. So this is in a cold place, relatively inaccessible place. If we travel to the South Lomi labyrinth, or Lomi labyrinth, we'll see that this one is in the opposite. This one is in a hot place. So ice, fire, and water, maybe that's what's going on. Some sort of elemental reflection. So this is the shrine at the center of the desert labyrinth. Once again, we have this electricity or magical lighting that isn't seen anywhere else in the game, only in these labyrinths. And actually, in this instance, oh yes, of course, in this instance I need to climb a ladder to get out. Whew. Each of these labyrinths, incidentally, has also been overtaken by that purple corruption that we've seen elsewhere in the game. It's interesting that these were a target for that corruption, Ganon's corruption. But here we have an exterior wall with again the dragon or the snake's mouth at the bottom, in the middle, and not quite at the top. We have this sort of curtain wall with the red stone in it, and we have the inner walls with this very uniform but very much repeating pattern of stone. What do these things mean? Why build these labyrinths? And also, why build them in relatively inaccessible places as well? Again, this is a desert area, but also actually in the map you have to come up out of the desert, go through this little canyon that's called the Champion's Gate, go around that, and come in from this angle here. They're not. This isn't for regular people to attend to, or to attempt to enter. This is, well, in canon, this is actually for you, for Link as the hero, to visit. But I wonder, if we discount the shrine in the centre and the fact that Link is meant to be visiting it, is there an element of hiding away or experimenting with letting go of that barbarian nature? Again, if we change into the costume that we can wear now, because we're not in the cold part of the map, is this what the Zonai people wanted to bury, to hide at the heart of these labyrinths? Potentially. Finally, let's travel all the way up then to the Lomi Labyrinth Island. There we go. So once again, we have a shrine, and here we can see and feel the fact that we're very much on an island. In fact, we can't leave the labyrinth. Outside the entrance there's just a sheer cliff and a drop-off. If we look straight ahead, see down here, there's the sea. So inaccessible, almost to a fault, really. And also, as well, in this instance, again, crawling with. So we have a guardian down there. We have some flying guardians. There's one over there. No, so two over there. There's one over there. Two over there as well, actually. It's interesting that clearly Ganon and his evil minions figured that this was a place that was worthwhile infesting, especially with all the sludge that you find lying around. But again, the size of this architecture, the uncompromising repetition of the patterns, and the fact that actually you have to work quite hard to see where the wall becomes a door, or where a turning is in fact leading to a corridor as opposed to a dead end like that. Oh, here we go. There's a turning. Oh, a treasure chest. Go away. What's in there? Ancient shaft. I'll take it. It's intriguing to me that that anyone would put so much energy, but clearly this would take a lot of effort and energy, especially if you're building right up to the edge of this island. In fact, being a perfectly square block of land, was this actually constructed out of the sea? Possibly. And yet these people, the Zonai ruins that are left around the whole map, seemingly had their origins here in the Faron region. That intrigues me. And there we go, see the Zonai ruins as named on the map there. What's going on with them? Are they connected to the Twilight or Twilight people, as possibly hinted at in the Tiflo ruins, and the fact that you can't even approach them without going into darkness? Did they rise out of the sea, as possibly indicated here, with this labyrinth just being plonked perfectly as a geometric anomaly in off to the northeast of the map? Did they relish extreme temperatures, hot and cold, or were they trying to deposit their barbarian selves, get away from that forest, woodland lifestyle, and experiment with a new way of life? It is hard to know for sure. And hence the purpose of them. As I say, they are called the mysterious Zonai people for a reason. The game has been designed with that in mind. But I'm just intrigued by what this narrative, the architecture, what the landscape, and what these choices tell us about what the good people at Nintendo had in mind when they came up with the Zonai people. See, like you could go around for days in this place, getting hopelessly lost with this repetition of architecture. This actually really rather dull architecture, actually. Now here we have some thorns that have grown in. I wonder if Let's see if I... Can I burn them? Oh, oh, fireballs, fireballs. Oh, I know what would be better if I get my bow out. No. So let's see. And fire arrow, switch to royal bow. There we go. So set the thorns on fire. Can we see what's up there? Interesting. Let's continue up these stairs and see. Maybe the thorns go away. Oh, fireballs again! Oh no! Oh no! I need to change my weapon. There you go. That's better. Up we go. Were they down? Was it down here? Is that where the thorns were? No. Oh. Okay, hang on. One more time. Once more with feeling. Oh, keys, Wing. Go on, I'll pick you up. Don't want to waste the wholesale slaughter of animals in the game. So it's not there. Where is it then? Where's the thorns protruding from, I wonder? So that's just a drop off back down to there. It's somewhere below. I guess it must be down. Let go. It must be down below. So I'm reluctant to go down there because it's crawling with guardians, but let's have a look. I know. Ooh. Oh, rats! Oh, rats! Don't! Do you know, I can't quite see, actually. Oh, no! Right, I'm going to have to escape. Escape! Oh, no! No! Okay, let's see if we can get to the... A pox on you, guardians! Laters! I'm sure that's connected to something, though. That it must be. I mean, this isn't really, I suppose, part of the mystery of the Zonai, but I'm just wondering what's going on there. Oh, of course I can climb. Of course I... Sometimes I forget I can climb. Okay, so what's up here then? Oh, a fire sword. Fair enough. Can't carry more melee weapons. As is ever the crisis for Link in Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think we should leave it there, folks. I think this has been an interesting overview of the Zonai architecture as found in this game. And as I say, I continue to be fascinated by this stuff, and I continue to form my theories as to exactly what's going on, in particular with the Zonai people. In particular as well, since that relationship between the Guccini Plain Barrows and the Faron woodlands and the jungle was confirmed in that world map as seen in the book Creating a Champion. If you don't know quite what I'm talking about, check out the previous episodes in this mini-series within a series. And what do you think? Comment below. Let me know what you think. Do my theories hold water? Do you think that actually I'm missing something crucial about the Zonai? I think that there's something in there, though, in terms of the relationship between the woodland, the Twilight or the Tweely people from Twilight Princess, and this stark contrast in terms of location, but also in terms of architecture. There has to be something in there as far as the Zonai people go. Well, I'm just going to avoid that guardian there. As ever, guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.